So come here. I can almost see you. There. All I really want to see is how many people do we have, and are they talking to us? And that, where does it usually show up? I don't know. Oh, there, right up here. Only one viewer so far. They'll show up. Yes. I wonder who signed in. Hi, Billy. Hi. Yeah, you're stuck with me again, folks, but we have a fun little thing to talk about today. And I have a helper. I have Chelsea to help me out. So there's Chelsea. Yeah, her hands are going to be very important to us. There's Patricia from Ontario. Hi, Patricia. I'm glad you could join us. And Wendy's here. I love the comments. Yeah, it's great to have the comments. So I'm going to skip most of the announcements because what's going on around here anyhow, because nobody tells me anything. No, that's not true, but you guys get told the announcements on a fairly regular basis, and I know we got a lot of regular viewers, so we won't do too much of that. But there was one thing I wanted to show you. I did remember. On Tuesday, we opened our February Viewers Challenge. We had a really Patricia's in a snowstorm. Great day for quilting. Yes, it sure is. We had a really great response to our January challenge, which was Celebrate Winter. And just a reminder, you can still get your photos for that into us until this coming Monday. And then Leah and Tyler and our marketing team are going to be doing something wizardly with them so that everybody gets a chance to see them. So I thought it was time that I brought in my Celebrate Winter panel. So I'll hold it up like that, just a little guy. Can you see the bottom? I'm looking in the screen here. I don't know how much you can see of this guy, but so it is officially called Winter Star. There's my bling. There's a little bit of bling in the snow too. And a wonderful little story to go with it. So over Christmas, I was listening to the radio and ran across a song by a Canadian country artist. The song was called Winter Star, and I loved it. I play it over and over again, you know, one of those songs. So I thought, that's a good theme for a quilt. So that was Winter Star, came out of that. As I'm working on it, I'm also thinking in my sewing room of the next panel that I want to do with my jewelry collection. And I know some of you have seen some of the panels I've already done. So I've had 2 misstarts with this one thing, and I've got, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm working on this, and I'm going, of course, Winter Star. So I haven't started. I know what I'm going to do. It's going to be just a larger version of this. So that's how these challenges can challenge you and maybe just answer a few questions for you. So it was lots of fun. I love getting ideas. Why did my screen go blank? Oh, because the stupid camera went blank. There, now it's back. Okay. So that's how these challenges can just suddenly answer so many questions for you. So I'm glad we're doing it. I'm glad you're playing along. It's a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing everybody's submissions. So what have we got for you today? Well, we love, I better check my list, make sure I don't forget anything. We love the guys in our service bay. They are amazing, and trust me, they're worth their weight in gold these days. Don't tell the boss that, but they do get a lot of questions and a lot of phone calls. So I thought it might be a good idea to walk you folks through some of the things that you can do at home before you have to call the service bay or haul that machine in through the snow and the cold to have them look at it. Some of the simple things we should be doing all the time with our sewing machines, especially when we're in the middle of a snowstorm and we want to spend the day sewing. So I have my helper Chelsea here today. I'll trade places with you, Chelsea. She's going to help demonstrate. We're upscaling this thing. There you go. Say hi to the nice people, Chelsea.
Hey guys. Rolling away.
Rolling away. So when it comes to your sewing machine and you sit down, you turn it on, and it's making a funny sound. Ooh, it's going bzzz. That's the first thing you check, is to see if you've bumped the lever on your bobbin winder. Because quite often that happens when we're setting things up, we bump that lever. What we've got in front of us today is a brother with an electronic push button thing, so I can't demonstrate that, but trust me, it happens. It happens on my big long arms sometimes. Turn it on, I go, it's buzzing. Oh, right, the bobbin winder. That's step one to check when you're troubleshooting your sewing machine. Let's say that's okay. You sit down and you start to sew and it's making a funny sound. Wow. Before you package it all up and bring it into the guys in the service bay, here's a few things that you should check out. And we're going to start right at the very top with your thread. And we upscaled. So, thread. Start with your thread. What kind of thread are you using? Are you using good quality thread that you've bought sometime within the last decade? That is probably the best thing. Or are you using a spool that you inherited from your grandmother, and when you run your fingers down it, it goes pop, 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 because there's little bally, linty things on it? Might be time to change your thread. The other thing... Hi, Tyler. Is something bonging?
Focus is a bit blurry, so I'm just going to adjust.
No, that's us. We're always out of focus.
We're just so focused.
We're just so focused, yes. So yeah, if you are using old thread, decorate with it. Don't try and sew with it. Get yourself some good thread. Then ask yourself, what's the spool, my spool like? Maybe you've changed threads recently and you're used to working with a thread that spirals off the top of your spool, but you've got a thread that unwinds now. That's going to make a difference in how your machine behaves. You might have to invest in a horizontal spool holder or a vertical. So, two things to pay attention to. So, good thread, no balls on it, and make sure your spool holder is oriented in the right direction. All right, next step, we're going to, machine's making a funny noise, you want to re-thread. So always snip your thread and pull it out and start fresh. Take that thread and start following the pathway as described in your manual. Your manual is your friend. I'm supposed to tell you that. Cliff said, tell people to read their manual. It should have everything in it that you need to know for home maintenance and servicing of your machine, including how to properly thread your machine. Each machine has a lot of similarities, but there could be minor differences in them as well. So you want to get your manual out. Oh, you have an old sewing machine and you've lost the manual? Don't panic. Most of them are still available online, even some of the older ones. So just start talking to Mr. Google and find the manual page for the machine that is most like yours. Okay? And that's going to save you a lot of headaches trying to scratch your head and figure it out. So we've got our thread, we've got our manual. We know we go through this thread guide, this thread guide. Okay, Chelsea, you're up. Now, the most important thing about threading your sewing machine is you have to thread the sewing machine with your presser foot up. These little guys are tension discs. All sewing machines have them. When your presser foot is down, the tension discs are closed to put the appropriate tension on your thread. If you try to thread the machine with the discs closed, what's going to happen? It's not going to go through. So you're going to have way too loose a tension. So we're going to raise our presser foot, which opens the tension discs, which lets us neatly thread the thread through it. You can hold it just tightly. So we have just the right amount of tension when we lower our presser foot. From there, we are going to continue threading. I'm going to put the thread on my thread stand. There we go. We're going to continue threading all the way down through the pathway. And if you have a real mechanical machine, you'll even see this. Somewhere in there, there's going to be a little spring thing. I couldn't find a spring, but your thread is going to go under that. And that's what's going to pull that thread back up as your machine takes a stitch. Make sure there's nothing wrapped around that or caught in that. Watch your thread path as you take your thread through all the way down to your needle. And if you want to see, Chelsea makes a wonderful tension unit. You just wait till we get to the lint balls. If you want to see some videos, we have a ton of videos on our YouTube channel that are going to show you the troubleshooting, care, and feeding of various styles and makes of machines. But I also I found one. I have seen this years ago. There's a video that you can find online called The Secret Life of the Sewing Machine. Don't watch the remastered one. Search out the old one from 11 years ago. And it's got two guys standing on a big sheet of styrofoam braced on a table, and two other guys underneath the table. And they've got a needle about 2 feet long, like this. And the one guy's holding a big spool of thread, and he's reeling it off, kind of like what I'm doing to poor Chelsea here. And the other guy takes the needle and he jams it down through the styrofoam. And then the guys under the table will grab the loop of thread, stuff the bobbin through it, wrap it around, and then the guy up top will pull it back up, and then they move the styrofoam along. It is the best visual example of how a sewing machine forms a stitch. And I'm a great believer in knowing how it's supposed to work, so then you can figure out what's not working. So yeah, Billy says the Secret Life series is fantastic. It's a British series. They got the Secret Life of a variety of things on there. So, but I do like the Secret Life of a Sewing Machine, because you see these guys with this giant needle, boom, and they feed the bobbin through, boom, and they pull it back up. Lots of fun. Okay, so we have our thread. We have it neatly through our tension disc. We've got it under our little check spring, and then we feed it through that take-up arm like that, and we come down to our needle. So here's the next question. When was the last time you changed the needle on your sewing machine? Yeah, some of us don't do it as nearly as frequently as we know we should. In the long arm area, we change the needle in our machine between every quilt, and I never have needle issues. So ask yourself, did I hit a pin? You can always check your needle. Yeah, we're upscaling. This is our sewing machine needle for today. So take your sewing machine needle out. Feel the tip. Run it across your finger. You'll know if it's got a little burr on it. Ask yourself, I haven't changed it since, if you can't remember when, it's the time. So check the point of your needle. Then ask yourself, okay, what size sewing machine needle should I be using for the size of thread I'm using? So hopefully you can see this. I'll hold it really close, really close. So this is the needle and this is the thread. Thread's moving through quite nicely. It's got a hole about that big. Now, if I were to try and take my other thread and stuff it through that needle, it's not gonna fit. And I'm gonna really have trouble sewing with that. If I take some thread like this, that's a lot thinner, I hope everybody can see this. Thread like this. It's going to rattle around inside the hole in that needle, and I'm not going to get great stitches. So you always want to match your thread to your needle, as well as your needle to the fabric you're sewing through. Are you sewing through denim? You might want a heavier needle. Are you sewing through silk? You might want a really nice sharp needle. Are you sewing knits? You might want a ballpoint needle. All of this information should be in your manual, so check it out. If you've lost that manual, we have at the store, this one happens to be the Oregon needles, little guides like this that give you the anatomy of needles and suggestions of what size and what type of needle to use with whatever you want to sew. So we've got our pathway threaded. We've got our needle checked, replaced, threaded again. Everything's good. We sit down at the sewing machine and it still doesn't seem to be working right. The tension's all wrong. Your manual's going to tell you how to work with your bobbin tension. It's not something we can really demonstrate here because every machine has a little bit of differences. The next most common problem when you have issues with your tension, we're going to remove the thread here for a minute, Miss Tension Disc. Sometimes when we have done a lot of sewing, can you hold those up? Hold them up in front of the camera here. When we've done a lot of sewing, what can happen is we get a ball of lint in the tension discs. And that makes it really hard for the disc to close appropriately on the thread. So what I have learned to do is take a small strip of fabric. Remember, we're upscaling. You'll need a strip about the width of a selvage, but I don't like to use the selvage because it can be a little coarse and a little rough. So for the average sewing machine, 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch strip of soft fabric. And I like to put a little bit of rubbing alcohol on it. And with these days, hey, who doesn't have rubbing alcohol sitting around? So you take your strip of fabric and you take your tension discs and you floss your tension disc gently, moving it through, and boop, out comes, oh my goodness, out comes the hairball that has been clogging your tension disc. So give that a try if you're having tension issues. It works amazing, and it's just has solved so many problems when I've been talking to people on the phone. Oh, my machine's not working. Try flossing out your tension discs, especially if you have been using thread conditioner on your thread, or you've been doing a lot of sewing, maybe with cotton thread. You can get hairballs in your tension discs. So clean them out on a regular basis. What else can we do for our poor sewing machine? Well, there's one more thing, and unfortunately, Miss Chelsea, we couldn't upscale this one. Thank you so much for your help. Wasn't she a wonderful tension disc? Yay, Chelsea! You may keep them. Actually, I think we will keep them because it is a really good visual for people. So I can't turn the sewing machine that I have with me on to show you, but I wanted to show you one more thing that you can do when you're troubleshooting problems with your sewing machine before you resort to the service bay. So I'm going to switch cameras. There, yay. Now this is a brother, and I'm doing this because I'm familiar with how it comes apart. But I learned something today about even this machine that I'm familiar with. What you want to do is dust out where your bobbin sits. Now the brothers, a lot of them have a drop-in bobbin. Bernina's do not. So this is where, again, your manual is going to tell you where to dust and how to dust, or our videos will show you where to dust and how to dust. And in a pinch, you can give us a quick phone call. So now I've removed the free arm, and the first thing I want to do is I'm going to take the bobbin out. Drop in bobbin right here. Then this front plate pops off. It's got a little finger hole. Make sure I do this right. Come here. I always take mine off in one. There we go. Just pops forward. And sometimes that is enough to let you dust out that bobbin case. Now here's your bobbin case. Lift that out. You didn't know that came out? How about that? And this is what I like to use to dust my sewing machine. This is an old makeup brush. It has a very soft bristle on it. Make sure it's clean. You don't want to put any lint or makeup particles in there. But the soft bristle just acts like a magnet to clean the fine little pieces out. And you can tuck it through. If you get a small one, you can tuck it into all of the little nooks and crannies. Don't use compressed air, canned air, or an air compressor unless you have been specifically told it's safe by a service tech. I wouldn't do it. Now, when I dust out my machine, I also remove the needle plate. And the brothers will come with a little gadget. We didn't have one handy. You can use a coin. So you just loosen the screws. Loosen the screws and take the needle plate off. Now, I have also learned to clean out the thread cutter. Yes. The guys in the service bay are super busy these days, but I know they are more than happy to show people how to do the simple maintenance things on their machines. I'm going to pop the foot off here. To do the simple maintenance things on their machines to keep them happily sewing without having to incur the costs of a service call. I mean, we like taking your money, but, you know, if you can avoid having to bring your machine in for a simple thing like a lint ball, there we go. So I can remove that carefully, and then I can dust. It's amazing the lint that gets here in the feed dogs. And I can dust it out with my brush, and I can stick my brush right down in there and give it a little twirl. This machine is a floor model, so it's nice and clean. I'm not getting much for lint on that one. So that's a good maintenance thing that you can do every so often, especially if you're sewing a lot. Now, the thing that I learned today from Cliff is put the pieces back on in the order that you took them off. So that means needle plate goes on first. Pop that little screw in there. There we go. Whoops. There we go. Oops. So while I'm doing this, just a reminder that different sewing machines need different care and feeding. So again, always refer to your manual. Don't undo any screws that look like they're going to be really hard to undo. Let's find out. There it is. Have a good close look at your manual to make sure that you are not opening something that is going to cause you more issues. What I'm showing you today is pretty much all you should need to do. And beyond this, these simple little things, the next step is to bring your machine in for a regular servicing. You drive a car, you take it in for an oil change every once in a while. You take it in more frequently if you drive a lot, less frequently if you don't. And it's the same thing with your sewing machine. You take it in for its regular checkup. So now I've put the needle plate back on. Now I want to drop the bobbin case back into place. And these brothers are handy. They put a little arrow, says, make sure the arrow lines up with that white dot. Tuck that guy in there because it can create a lot of issues. And then lastly, you clip in the front. There we go. Right in there. I hope Leah's not turning green watching me do this. So and then we can put our bobbin back in. This, whoops, come here you. There we go, right there. Drop that in and put our bobbin plate back in. And we can put our foot back on, doing it manually, because anytime you are doing this sort of work on your sewing machine, you want to have it unplugged or at least switched off. So now you've done all of this work, you sit down, you put the thing in, and it's still making a funny noise. Now you can call the service bay. Book it in for servicing, bring it in for a spot check. You've done everything that you can to look after your baby. And it also helps, speaking from experience, to have that spare backup machine under the table, because if you do have to take your main machine in for servicing and you've got something you just have to work on, it doesn't hurt to have a spare. So okay, check my notes, make sure I haven't forgotten anything. Oh, there is one thing. When bother to call the service bay? Well, I put a few things down. I mentioned one already. Did you accidentally bump the bobbin winder and it's making a funny noise? Don't call the service bay if your problem is more of a sewing problem. You have a small machine and you want to hem a pair of jeans. I hate hemming jeans. And you can't get it to sew over that thickness of fabric. That's more of a sewing issue. It's not something the guys in the service bay can help you with. They'd love to, but their time is pretty short. But the girls on the floor, yes, Teresa, I hope everybody else can see the comments. That is also something the guys in the service bay cannot help you with. If the cat eats the cord on your sewing machine, I'm afraid you're going to have to get a new cord. If you can't sew over the thicknesses of denim, you might need to come to the store and get a little gadget called a hump jumper that helps get things over the hump like that. Or maybe we can suggest a different approach to sewing. If you are really trying to do free motion on your machine and you can't get your stitches an even length, if you do not have a stitch regulator, that's just practice. That's not a problem with your sewing machine. So there's some things we can fix for you and there's some things we can't. So, but we're always willing to listen to you and to help you where we can. Leah says the right number of machines to have is the same as the number of fishing rods that your husband owns. You could put fishing rods in brackets and say, oh, I don't know, drills, or maybe antique vehicles, uh, pretty much anything like that. Yeah. So that's what I've got for you today. I hope that was helpful. I know some of it is a repeat for some of our regular people, but it never hurts to repeat something that we think we know, but we've sort of maybe forgotten. So when in doubt, check your manual. Rethread your machine, use good quality products, change your needle, and get those lint balls out of wherever they're hiding. If you still have a problem, bring your sewing machine in. The guys will be happy to look at it for you. So that is about it for today. I hope we all had fun. Golf clubs, yeah, especially when they don't play golf anymore. Gee, we've got something going on here. So, have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody. I'm not sure who's going to be tagged for Facebook tomorrow. I'm going to try and tag Leah, but she's still working from home, so she might be in her pajamas by then and not want to appear on camera. So, we'll just play it by ear. Have a great Thursday. Have a wonderful Friday when it comes along. Get some sewing done and start thinking about those February challenges. Think pink. Project of any size, as long as it involves at least 3 different pink fabrics. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time. And thanks for joining us. And thanks for Chelsea to help out with our